وسلم ما بعد. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and sitting down and listening to something that's really meaningful to me and hopefully to all of us. It's the story of my conversion to Islam, or reconversion, like some people like to say. And we can use these stories, like from last one, Brother Abdul Razak gave this story, as a means for reflection, so we can appreciate what we have. Some of us were born into Islam, some of us accepted it, but sometimes all of us, even people that have been Muslim for a while, we become kind of complacent and we don't appreciate what we truly have. And sometimes I give the example of a person that eats steak and shrimp every single day. Maybe after 5 years, they look at the plate and they say, "Oh, steak and shrimp again." So Islam is the best of the best. There's no other religion like Islam. It's the truth. So hopefully these stories can be used as a means of appreciation, and also on how perfect Islam is and how powerful that these words, the Shahadah, the La ilaha illallah, how powerful they are, because they changed nations. They've taken nations from that were on the brink of destruction, people that worship idols, to what you have today, like in Mecca, Medina, Pakistan, and all these Muslim countries that worship the one God. So before I begin, inshallah, last time the brother gave a disclaimer. I don't have the same disclaimer, except that my story is not as exciting as other people's stories. I usually listen to stories on YouTube, and they jump in out of a plane. I had an epiphany, or something real exciting. Mine is pretty bland. It's nothing too exciting. If you get too comfortable, you might fall asleep. So that's my disclaimer. Don't get too comfortable. So these few words, the Shahadah, that changed my life. Inshallah, I'm just going to give a brief comparison of my life before Islam and my life after accepting Islam. My father was born in Panama, and my mother was born in Spain. My father moved to the United States at a young age. He joined the United States Air Force. And while in service in Spain, he met my mom, and they came here. I really don't know the love story of it. It was like an officer and a gentleman type of thing, carrying I don't know the story. I never asked my parents. But they ended up in the United States, and I was born in California. I was born in California, and I left at a real young age, and I lived in Jersey for the most of my life. So in Jersey, I grew up with both my parents until a certain age. No religion was really emphasized at home. I went to a normal school. I lived in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. I think at that time it was like 90-something% Hispanic. So it's mostly Hispanics. But our culture, we were mostly influenced by the American culture, by the music at the time. Not really much the Hispanic culture, other than what we speaking Spanish at home and all that. We were mostly influenced by the music and the American culture. And religion wasn't really an emphasis in that culture. So at home, my father's take on religion, he was closer to being an agnostic, I would classify, if I had to classify him. He really believed that if there is a God, then why can't we prove it? This kind of mentality. And my mom was more open to anything. I could tell her I became a Buddhist and I'm going to dye my hair purple. She'll say, "Okay, my son, I love you still," or that type of attitude. But nothing was really taught at home as far as religion. No religion was emphasized. And this is an important point for me, because I feel like I was able to experience the fitrah, the natural inclination that there is a higher power. Because no religion was taught at home. I went to a public school. No religion was taught at school, obviously. And definitely no religion was emphasized on TV or cable or any of these channels. But I always still had some sort of awareness that there was a higher power or something, and I just didn't know what it was at the time. So I went all throughout my grammar school without really no religion. And I remember an incident, though. I remember an incident that happened to me in 8th grade, and I think this is also like a red marker of the fitrah, of this natural inclination that there is a creator. I remember walking with my friend, we used to call him G. We were walking down, it was a summer day, real nice, beautiful day, everybody hanging outside, and he looked upset. We're just walking down my block, and then he turned to me and he said, "There can't be a God." And this guy, he had a real rough life. His father was somewhere else. His mom, she had issues with drugs and other things. So he had a pretty rough life, and I don't know what upset him that day, but he turned to me and he said, "There can't be a God." And I remember as if that the sun went, it felt like the sun went away and the skies turned gray. And this is an 8th grader, never been taught religion. Never been taught anything about religion. But I felt fear for him, and I felt like we were going to be destroyed at that point. This is in 8th grade, and I don't know how old 8th graders are. How old 8th grader? How old are you? In 8th grade? 13, 14 years old, never been taught religion. Religion wasn't emphasized at home, school, or even in the society. In the culture, religion wasn't popular or cool or anything. But as soon as he said that, I felt, till this day, that I can remember how the sensation, the feeling, I felt the fear for him and for me. I felt like at that point we're both going to be destroyed. Like, how could you say there's no God? So this is kind of like, to me, I think these things, these few incidents that happened, they made the transition to becoming Muslim easier, and also it made sense, once Islam was first presented to me. So in grammar school, I was always a class clown, but I was a somewhat decent student as far as grades. I did do well. At home, I really didn't have, my mom, she was always working, so I didn't have a parent that was always on top of me with my grades. But I tried my best, and I remember getting into high school, and my freshman year, they put me in all honors classes because of the placement exams. And I felt uncomfortable because it was mostly with people, mostly full of people that that we call geeks. So I asked my counselor to take me out. And the reason I'm giving that story because I'm going to compare it to when I studied after Islam. So the environment for back then, it wasn't really conducive to this type of growth. Where the peer pressure was the opposite. Trying to study or trying to get ahead. It wasn't really what was the peer pressure would pull you away from these things. So I asked my counselor to switch me out of these classes, and I remember her telling me that this is going to be the biggest mistake you've ever made, and you're going to regret it, and you're going to go to the regular classes. But I just wanted to be with my friends. So I went through high school just hanging out with my friends, and then my second year of high school, I started wondering again about religion. And I went into a Catholic church one time, and I was just looking around. It was a Catholic church by my house. And I remember a little nun, she came up to me, and she said, "Follow me." And we went to this big golden, it looks like that thing that you put the tea in, but it was like a golden one, shaped fancy. And she told me the Spirit of God is in there. And I was, and it didn't feel right, automatically. I was like, man, I'm not praying. She said, ask in there. The Spirit of God is in there. So ask whatever you need from God. God is right there. So I was like, this is scary. So that was the it for Catholic religion. I left. And then my friend, he started going to a church, and I'm not too familiar with the denomination, but it was one of those types where they like to sing and feel the Holy Spirit. And I'm sure you know what kind of Christians those are. Okay, those. So it was those, they like to sing, and it was like a club. My friend went there because he told me, let's go to this church. He said he wanted to go because there were pretty girls. That's what he told me. So I went with him because I wanted to I was hanging out with my friend anyways, but I was interested in the church. Like I said, I was always curious about life after death. Oh, and this takes me back. I remember even same year when in 8th grade, I called my father and I asked him, what happens to us when we die? And I remember his answer to this day. He told me, what happens to you when you fall asleep? I don't know, you close your eyes and then you just wake up in the morning. He said, okay, that time that you don't remember, that's death, but eternity was like, man, I was in 8th grade, but I was like, the math doesn't, that was like 1 plus 1 equals 3. I was like, I didn't understand that. I said, okay, fine, if that's your outtake on it. So none of these things satisfied my quench to find out and understand what happens to us after we die, and who is the true God, and what is the correct religion. So I went to this church, and it was just like we went on a Sunday. It was like a party, the choir singing and all that stuff. Somebody got up and speaking in tongues and passed out and all this stuff. And I really didn't like it either. I was like, these guys are a bunch of wackos. It looked weird. It was weird. To me, that's how I felt. It was weird. It was like these guys just dancing all over the place. We're supposed to worship God. I was just worshiping God. I go to the club for this. So, but we ended up going a few more times because my friend, he wanted to go, and you knew his motives. But I went with him anyways, and they had these sessions where you would sit down and talk and ask questions. And I would ask a lot of questions. And I would observe, my main thing is I would observe the pastor and how his conduct. And I remember talking to his son, and back then, when I was growing up, everybody in our neighborhood had an illegal cable box. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Everybody growing up during that time, we all had illegal cable boxes, so we can get all the channels. So we're all talking about it, joking about it. And then the pastor said, yeah, I have that too. So I'm like, and for everybody else, it was normal. It was just normal. It was something normal. If you have an illegal box, it's not like you're a criminal. You're doing what everybody else does. But while that's happening, I'm looking at him. I'm like, you're the pastor's son. I mean, you're supposed to be an example for us. I'm thinking in my head, why does this guy steal cable if he's a man of God? So that was my first strike, with this place. Another incident, and it may sound kind of cliche and corny, but one time I remember they were having a conference, and I went to the bathroom, and it was dirty. It was dirty, and I was upset. I was like, this is supposed to be the house of God. Why is it dirty? So I said, you know what? I'm gonna clean it real quick before anybody else comes. And after I cleaned it, I really felt like I did something good. I said, look, I did this deed just to clean the house of God, and I didn't do it for no person. I just did it for, I figured I just did it for God, just house of God. Nobody saw me, nobody thanked me. It was just between me and God. And that same day, the pastor was giving a speech, and he's talking, and he said that every single human being has a place in life. And everybody will eventually manifest into whatever was decreed for them. And he said, this can be anything. He said, you can be a doctor, you can be a pastor, or even the person that cleans the bathroom. He said it just like that. And I was like, lights went out. I was like, man, I think I found my calling. This is the right thing. This got to be for me. So I went up to the pastor in private, and I said, listen, I just had a moment. And I told him, I said, look, I just cleaned the bathroom before you said that. And he said, no, you're too smart. You can't clean the bathroom. It's not for you, this and that. And I'm sure he wanted good for me, but it shattered me. I was like, man, I just told you, I had a moment here, it felt good, and he's telling me, you're not going to do that. He said, that's for other people. And I felt like, what does that mean? So that was like, to me, that was almost like strike three. I became rebellious after that. I became so rebellious. I remember one time they were having a prayer session, and I wouldn't partake in it. I wouldn't do all that, close my eyes and all this stuff they did. I would just watch. I would never partake in any of those things because it didn't feel right. And I remember one guy, he came behind me and he put his hand on my head, and he said, please guide this guy. You see him and he's in darkness. And I'm like, and I'm boiling up. Really, honestly, I envisioned myself grabbing his wrist and just breaking his wrist. Because he was nonchalant about it. He put his hand on my head and he said, guide this man. He's in darkness. And this and that and that. And I'm like, man, I'm not coming back here. So that was the end for Religious Search. And that was pretty much during high school. I didn't have any other interaction with Muslims. I met a Spanish guy, and he told me he became Muslim. And I said, you're not black. I said, what are you talking about? And he was like, no. He didn't explain himself. He didn't explain, that there's other Islam. I just said, you're not black. I'm thinking Nation of Islam. And I was like, why are you Muslim? I said, you're not black. And he said, no, it's not like that. I said, okay, whatever. But this kid would still use, he would smoke weed and all this stuff, but he said he was Muslim. So that wasn't really the best example. I had no exposure to Islam. So now I finished high school, and I gave myself a one-year vacation. I said, okay, before I get serious, if I'm going to pick a career or go to school, this and that, I'm going to just hang out for a year. And I had my friends, and we had a plan. We said, okay, we're going to, I had a car. I had a tiny little green car. I said, we're going to go to New York, spend the whole night there, go to different clubs, hang out. And we would do this. We would go, and we would come back to Jersey by 5 in the morning. And then one of my other friends, he worked in a hotel, so we would go there for free breakfast. And we'll just have a breakfast buffet. And I was like, man, this is a good life. I'm going to do this for a year. Then my mom, then I started running out of money. And my mom was like, look, if you're not going to do nothing, you got to get a job. You got to bring in some money. And then so we came up with a plan, me and my friends, we came up with a plan to a business plan. But all of us had to come up with $300 each to go ahead and do this business plan. And I had it calculated, we were going to make some money. But I had to get a job just to get the $300, So I got a security guard job. And I worked in the site for like a month, and I got the $300. And then we all collected the money, and we were going to start our business. But I didn't quit my job, and they transferred me to another site. And then the first day at this site, I entered to this new job on a Tuesday. And I went in, my shift started like at 9 o'clock at night. And the last guy that was there, his name was Muhammad. But he's just a normal guy. He was telling me about the guy that I was going to work with. I was going to work with another guy named Ramadan from 9:30 p.m. to like 4 something in the morning. It was going to be the overnight shift. And he was telling me how interesting that brother Ramadan is. And I'm just listening to him, I'm saying, okay, that's fine. So he left, Muhammad left, and Ramadan comes in. Now Ramadan comes in, nice beard, smells good. The first thing he does is come in with a big smile, and he greets me and he shakes my hand. Now this is odd for us, in American culture, just to just big smile, greet someone and shake their hand for no reason. Usually you don't feel comfortable, like what's wrong with this guy? There's something, yes, this guy is something, he's out there. But when he did it, it was actually comforting. Like I was like, oh, he felt, it made me feel welcomed. So he shook my hand, greeted me, introduced himself, and then he sat down and we briefly spoke about the job description, what we have to do and all that. And then we're just sitting there. It's a security guard job. You just sit there and you secure an empty building because everybody left already. So we're just sitting there, and he opens up a Quran. He takes it out of his bag, he opens up a Quran, and it was a big one at that time. I think it was the Yusuf Ali, real big one. And he had the Arabic on one side and the English. Now Arabic to me looked like Chinese letters. I don't know what language it was. So now I'm sitting there with nothing. I didn't even have a magazine. I didn't bring nothing. I'm just sitting there playing with my fingers. And I look, and I see the Arabic. And I'm like, man, I want to ask him, what's this guy reading? You got 2 languages in one book on the same page. It was like, it's some magic or something. What's 2 different languages? So I'm looking, and I'm trying to muster up some courage to ask him. And so finally I was like, hey, what are you reading? So he turned with a big smile, and it's like he was so happy that I asked him. And I'm like, and I didn't think it was weird. I think in other scenarios, if the same thing would have happened with other things, it might have been weird, smiling and all. So he told me, this is the Quran. This is the revelation of God sent down to Prophet Muhammad, and it's the same message that was sent to Jesus of worshiping one God. Now, I kid you not, the moment he said that, not knowing anything about Islam, I already knew in my heart that I was going to be a part of this faith. And I'm not trying to, make my story sound cool or, something, have an interesting point. That's how I truly felt. I knew nothing about Islam. When Islam was presented to me, then the Spanish guy said, oh, you're not black. So I knew zero about Islam. I figured the Arabs, they, blowing the flutes and snakes coming up and this. This was my vision. It was like movies. This is what they show on TV. But the minute he said those few words and just explained what the Quran was, in my heart, I was like, man, this is it. This is the true religion. I already knew. So that Tuesday, that whole night, I kept asking him questions. So what do you guys believe in? This, and that. So that whole Tuesday, I just asked him questions about Islam. Now the next day I was excited to go to work. I went to work Wednesday, and I had a whole bunch of questions. He came in. This time though, I was already asking questions that a Muslim would ask. You know, like questions, can I do this? Like I already had it in my head that I was going to be Muslim. Now I wanted to know, okay, when I accept Islam, because I knew already it was a matter of time. When I accept Islam, can I do this? Can I do this? So the whole night now, I was asking him questions about, can I do this? Can I do that? Well, do I have to stop doing this, and this, and that? And I was satisfied with all the answers. So now Thursday comes, and now I'm not talking to him as much because I'm trying to find a way to ask him, can I become Muslim? And it was more of a pride thing, you know, it's kind of like, you know, when you go to a car dealer and there's two cars, you might like the red car, but you give more attention to the blue car, you know, it's like a game, you know, like a little pride game. So I was like, I didn't want to ask him, I didn't want to seem vulnerable, you know, he just told me about the religion, and 2 days later, I become Muslim. So the whole night we were kind of quiet, and I was quiet because I was thinking in my head, how am I going to tell this man that I want to become Muslim? So I'm looking at the clock, an hour goes, 2 hours go, I'm looking, I'm like, man, I got to ask him, I don't want to waste another day. So it's like 30 minutes left before the shift ends. So I say, listen, I want to visit a mosque. That was how I came up with an agreement within my head. I said, okay, I'm not going to tell him I want to become Muslim, but I'm going to ask him to visit a mosque. So he smiled again, he was real happy. He said, tomorrow's Friday. He said, Friday we have the service, the Jummah service. And I told him where I lived, and actually for 15 years, I lived 2 minutes from a masjid. And I hope this is a lesson also, you know, for the neighbors, you know, surround us. It's our duty to call people to Islam. You know, for 15 years, I lived next to this mosque, and I never knew it was a mosque. You know, they were mostly made up of Palestinians and Jordanians, nothing against Saudi, you know. But they were really into, they were just, when they got there, they were into their business. They all had stores. They sold poison to the Hispanic people, the cigarettes and this and that. But they didn't give people the cure and the medicine. They had the cure and the medicine. You know, we were all sick. We had no Islam. They had it in this place for 15 years, and they didn't share it with nobody but themselves. You know, and I hope this is something that we all never do, inshallah. So, 15 years living next to this mosque, he described the building. I was like, oh, that building, that's a mosque? There's Muslims in there? He said, yeah. And he told me what time to go. And I sat down during the Jummah, and it was all in Arabic. And I was just sitting next to him. He was on the left of me. I remember he was on the left of me. The imam is right in front of us giving the khutbah. And I didn't understand a spank of words. You know, the whole thing was in Arabic. But in my head, I was like, okay, you're going to ask him. You're going to ask him. So we got up to pray. I prayed the 2 rakats with him. So I actually prayed 2 rakats before I accepted Islam. And after, he turned to me on the right and he said, so what do you think? So I was like, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to become Muslim. So he got up, he took me by the hand. We walked up to the imam. He told the imam, and I took my Shahadah, and then I had my first bad experience as a Muslim. I had a bunch of grown men line up to give me wet kisses on my cheek. So this was my first bad experience with Muslims, and I hope, you know, like, we don't do that again. You know, we got, you know, it's a culture shock. You know, maybe just a handshake or a little hug, but these guys all lined up. And I remember, you know, the first they were giving me kisses like you know, cheek to cheek. But there was one guy, he was so happy, he looked like he was about to cry, and he turned my cheek, and his lips went like this, right on my cheek. And I was like, man, and I felt a little wetness. I was like, oh man, this is not good. This is not a good start to my Islam. So I took Shahadah, and this was in 97. I'm sorry, this is in 97. So I took my Shahadah, now in 97. I go home, and there was nobody home to tell. I wanted to tell my neighbors, or somebody. I didn't have no one to tell. My dog was there. I told my dog, joking around. I was like, you know, I'm Muslim now. You know, my mom came home. I told her, like I said, you know, she was just, oh, that's nice, that's good, you know. But I as fast as I accepted Islam when it was presented to me for the first time, because I knew it was the truth, was as fast as I wanted to give up everything and learn about the religion. now I said, I immediately, I mean, within the first few weeks, I changed my attitude and with my friends. I would hang out with them, but I said, look, if you guys are going to do anything bad, I just became Muslim a few days ago. I don't want to see any of that stuff. And oh, okay, cool. But even after, I never missed, since that day that I took Shahadah till today, I never missed a prayer. So I would pray and I would hang out with them just for like a week. But even the first week, I was in my head, I couldn't rationalize that. It's like, how am I going to pray to God and hang out with these guys, in a club or something like that? It's like oil and water, it doesn't mix. So I immediately, I'm talking about it within a few weeks, I cut them off. I would just talk to them on the phone, but I said, look, I can't hang out with you guys. So I had the same problem that the brother Abdul Razak mentioned, going to the masjids, and there was really no Americans or anything. So I went to Patterson, and I met this African-American brother, Dawood, rahimahullah, and he introduced me to Muhammad and Omar and all these brothers, and these were the first Hispanic Muslims, Roberto, these were the first Hispanic Muslims that I met. So it was immediately, a sense of relief to meet someone that came from a similar culture that you can relate to, and they were fun and clowns just like me. So it was I had someone to replace my friends that I hung out with before Islam, and I never got back those $300, by the way, the ones I invested. Just wanted to throw that out there. So I had someone else to hang out with now. So I went a few months, I took Shahadah like in September, and December was my first Ramadan, and I wanted to study Islam so bad. So I had a plan. I said, okay, I'm going to go to Virginia. They have a school. It's a branch of a school in Riyadh, University of Riyadh. And I said, I'm going to talk to someone. I'm going to tell them I took Shahadah, and I'm going to tell them to send me to Medina. I thought I had a plan. I thought I was like, man, I just figured, I'm a lottery winner. I discovered something. But when I got there, I found out there's a process that takes 2 years, usually a year to 2 years, to actually know if you got accepted or not. And we went all the way to Virginia. It was this brother named Ismail, American brother, another convert. We went all the way to Virginia. By the time we got, while we were driving, we figured we calculated we only had like $20 put together. So half of that we spent in tolls. And back then you could fill my little car up with $10. So I said, look, when we fill up my car, man, we're going to have money for the tolls, and we're not going to get to eat. So, so it was like all bad news. Like, look, we can't go to Medina. The process takes a year or two. You ain't got no money, no food. So we're sitting in the hallway of this school, the university, and we're just like not saying nothing to each other. We're just quiet, for like 10 minutes, just sitting there with our faces down like little puppies, like sad. And then like these brothers come out of the classroom, and this one brother introduced himself. His name was Adawi, just like the sect. So he introduced himself. He was a Cambodian brother. And he said, where you guys from? He said, oh, from Jersey. I said, I came up here because I thought I was going to go from here. I thought I was going to go from there, and I was going to have to rush back home to pack. Really, I thought it was going to be like, I thought it was that. I was like, look, I'm American, Hispanic, I just became Muslim. They're going to be happy. Of course they're going to send me to Medina to study. So I thought, look, okay, this is the plan. We're going to get there. We're going to have to rush back to pack. We're probably going to get our visas and all this. And I really had to think about it. I don't even think I had a passport. But, we were... I don't think I had a passport. We were just so excited. We just wanted to go ahead and study Islam. So the brother comes up to me, and he says, I told him my story. He says, come to my house. I'm going to hook you up with a meal. So he came and he made us these Cambodian spicy noodles. He gave us some dates with the almonds, some green fruit punch stuff. It was to me, I remember the meal because I was starving. And I knew I wasn't going to get food because I had no money. I had to fill up my gas. So it was like the best meal I ever had. I'm eating it, he's talking and I can't even hear him no more because I'm eating my food so fast. And he told us, he said, look, why don't you come here and study in Virginia? They had a 2-bedroom apartment. There was already like 9 brothers sharing that 2-bedroom apartment. So he said, why don't you come here and study? So, and he gave us $20. He gave us $20 before we left. So alhamdulillah, we went there with a different opportunity that opened up for us. So I went back and I was convinced that I was going to go back. And I was the first one to go back, and I think his brother drove me there, if I'm not mistaken. And so when I started studying there, now This is me going back to school. It's kind of like a parallel life to what I did before Islam. But now I have the Shahadah. Now I have Islam. Now the class that I was in, there was about 20-something students, all of whom traveled from far distances just to study. So the environment was like, look, it's peer pressure to get good grades. It was opposite than in high school. And I was among 4 students, the only ones that didn't know the Arabic alphabet. We were fresh. It was level 1, but the guys that came, they've been studying for years. When I got there, I mean, this is the first week, they're asking grammar questions. They're all this, that. And I'm like, what's alif? You know, I'm still stuck on alif, bad tag. You know, what are you talking about? Arab and balagha and all this stuff, you know, and help me out with this ayat I just read. I'm like, man, you know, like, what's that letter? But there was only 4 of us. And the teacher, he catered those students. So it was either keep up or, you know, or go home type of thing. So out of us 4, there was 20-something students. Out of us 4 that didn't know the alphabet, 2 of them ended up quitting. 1 of them ended up failing. What I would do is I would go to the water heater closet in my house in Virginia, and I would stay in that closet for 5 hours studying. I was like, I got to get these letters, you know what I mean? I want to learn the speech of Allah. And alhamdulillah, towards the end of the semester, I remember we all had to write a paragraph in Arabic. This was already a semester past, we all had to write a paragraph. And I remember the teacher going through the papers, checking them each one. He stopped. And he read it, and then he looked at me. I'm like, man, maybe I wrote a bad word or something in Arabic, you know, like. So he stopped, and he looked at me again, and he was just like perplexed, you know, he's just like, he gets up, and he's quiet, and he was like choked up. He said, this is the best student I ever had in my life. He said he came here as a brand new Muslim, only knowing the alphabet, and he wrote the best paragraph that I've seen to this day. And alhamdulillah, I ended up finishing 2nd semester there, and they sent a few students to Hajj. So, you know, I mean, I'm saying these things not to show off, but just to show you that what I was doing before Islam was zero. I mean, it was nothing going on in my life. And just from taking the Shahada,